So the first thing we're going to do is to open Pro Tools, and I just have it here on my dock. So navigate to Pro Tools and open the application. And if it's your first time opening Pro Tools, it might take a little bit to load. Right now I am running Pro Tools Studio, but you may be running Pro Tools Intro, which is completely fine. What we're going to be doing in these series of tutorials can be done with Pro Tools Intro, so don't worry about that. So again, if this is your first time opening Pro Tools, you will get this pop-up window to select an audio device as your playback engine. So just hit next. And right now, I'm using an interface, the Scarlett Solo USB, so I'm going to select that. If you're on a MacBook, you can choose just your MacBook Air speakers, or if you have headphones plugged in directly into your laptop, it should say external headphones. So I'm using Scarlett Solo USB, so I'm just going to select that and I'm going to hit OK. Alright, so the next thing that's going to pop up is this window right over here, and it's just asking you to set up a session, which we're going to do. So I'm just going to call this session How to Use Pro Tools. And I like you putting it as prompting for the location. You can also just choose where you want to save it through, like exactly here by hitting browse. But I put prompt for location. And then for the sample rate, I have it as 4824 as default right now. If it doesn't say that, you can change it to 48 and 24 this way. IO, we're not going to touch that quite yet. We're going to set that up together later. So right now what we have is our name, our file type, which we'll leave as the WAV file, sample rate, bit depth, and then IO settings. We're going to keep it as last used, keep everything else unchecked, and we're just going to create our session. Like I said, I have prompt for location up. So once I create the session, my Finder will pop up. So I want to save it to this folder on my desktop. So just navigate to your desktop, go to whatever folder you want to save your session in, and I'm just going to save it right here. Once you hit save, it will load for a little bit, just initializing everything, and then your session will pop up. So I'm running on a laptop. I've also just changed my Pro Tools UI setting to Classic. It's just easier to see everything that way. Just for the sake of these tutorials, we'll be using Classic. It should automatically pop up as Classic if you've never used Pro Tools before. But yeah, so this is our session. I'm just going to double click here so it fills my entire window. Your session may look like this when you just open it. What we're going to do is clean up what we don't want, don't need, and just set it up ideally for the tutorials. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to change this to timecode, because we're going to be using timecode. That is usually what we use when we are editing for film. Another way to do this is to also just click timecode over here. So like, for example, if you want to use minutes and seconds, you just hit it and it'll change up here. So we're just going to use timecode, so you can click this and it'll change to timecode. And I just have my session starting at 50 minutes, but yours may look more something like this, starting at 0. So like I said, we're going to clean things up a little. What we're going to do is we're going to hold down, if you're on Mac, hold down Option. If you're on PC, hold down Alt. And just click the ones you don't want on the side here. We don't need bars and beats or minutes and seconds, feet, frames, samples, tempo, meter, key, chords. We're just going to keep timecode and markers here because those are the main things that we're going to be using today. All right, so now we kind of have our ideal Pro Tools session setup. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to import the clips that you're going to want to use. How we're going to do this, we're going to add it to our clip bin, and then we're going to put them in our session. So as you can see in the bottom right corner over here, there's an arrow. Just click that. And this is your clip bin or your clip list. And what we're going to do is we're going to import clips over here. Well, the easiest way to import your clips into your Pro Tools session is to navigate to that folder. I have it open here. It should be in the folder that you were provided in a subfolder called Sounds. And we're just going to import these 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all of them and just drag them into your clip list. Perfect. Now that they're all here, it'll take a bit for them to import because we're working in a session that is 4824 for the sample rate and the bit depth as we have selected when we were creating our session. All of these files may not be 4824. So when we drag them in, it just takes a bit. They are converted and then ready to use in your session. Alright, so now that we have the sounds in our clip list, what we're going to do is create 8 tracks. How you can do that is hit Shift Command N or Shift Control N on PC. And we're going to create 8 stereo tracks. If you're using Pro Tools Intro, the maximum amount of tracks that you can create is 8, so we're just going to use all of those tracks. Once you hit Shift Command N or Shift Control N, you'll get this window here. Let's make 8 tracks. We're going to do stereo, and we'll just leave them as audio. You can name them whatever you want, but I'm just going to leave it audio. And then just hit create or hit return, and it automatically creates all the tracks for you here. Just to make it easier for us, here's a quick tip. You can go to your preferences, which you can go from setup, and then you go here to preferences, and I'm going to change my track color so they're all different colors, and it's just easier to differentiate which audio clip is on which track this way. So I'm going to just do tracks and MIDI channels. That will make all of our tracks a different color. All right, perfect. So now the next thing we're going to do here is move these clips so we have them on our track so we can freely use them, move them around, and whatnot. Alright, I've just changed so I have no inputs and or outputs, which is what your session might look a little bit more like, just because we haven't set up our I/O yet. But once you drag in your tracks, we'll be setting up our I/O really shortly, but let's first put our clips that we have just imported into our clip list onto our track so that we can use. So you can select all of them at once by hitting Shift Command A or Shift Control A. Or you can just select them by hitting the first one, Shift, and the last for the range that you want to select. Or you could literally do it one by one, but just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to hit Shift Command A, so I'm selecting all of them. And I'm dragging these 3 audio clips to our first 3 tracks over here. So like this, and you'll notice that it automatically goes to their own independent track. All right. So this is what your session might look like. Just for the sake of using the most of our edit window, I'm just going to close the clip list now because we don't need that anymore. Now your session will look something like this because you have no outputs assigned. What we're going to do now is set up our I/O. That's the last thing that we're going to do in this video. So how are we going to do that is go to Setup, I/O. I've created a shortcut here. I personally like claw, which is Control Option Command, and I, so for I/O. So I'm going to hit this. So I already have 2 outputs created here, but yours will probably look empty. No worries, just ignore these 2 that we have going on right now. What you're going to do is you're going to create a new path. And it's going to be a stereo path. And you can just leave it as output, or you can name it whatever you'd like. I'm running a interface like I said, and that is why mine says over here the ASUS. So yours might say MacBook or external headphones. That is totally fine. Just make sure that you have the output that you just made. Wherever these automatically went, drag them to whatever your playback engine is. So your interface, your headphones, your Mac, just make sure that your left and right are being routed correctly there. Alright, so because I already had an active output, I'm just going to keep mine as is. And make sure you select your monitor path to the output that you just created. So if you just created one here, it will show up. I'm using the Xmon. So that is my monitor path and my audition path. Once you've done that, just hit OK. And we're going to assign our outputs over here. How you assign an output, selecting the track that you want to change the output for, hit your audio output path selector over here. If you're not seeing any of these, you might have to go here to the top left corner and just make sure you have I/O toggled on. Hit output and you should find the output that you're currently using. So we created output together. Yours will not say path inactive, and it might be white instead of orange. Orange is because that means it's already in use by another track. So yours will probably be like just a white text saying output or whatever you named it. Just select that as your output. And then you'll notice that now, because you have an active output, your track will have color now. So we're just going to do that to the rest of them. You can select multiple tracks by hitting any track and command and just selecting, or you can hit any of the tracks and then shift to select a range, just like you would in any file explorer or finder. Now hit Shift Option or Shift Alt if you're on a PC, click on your output, and then while still holding down Shift Option or Shift Alt, click on your desired output. This will change all of them all at once. Perfect. All right, so you'll notice now mine doesn't say the output that we selected earlier, just because for the sake of this tutorial, I have created a bus, which we're not going to get into today. That's just so you can hear what I'm doing while I'm recording this video. All right, now that you have your routing all set up, let's just test to make sure that we're getting signal from our tracks into our headphones or speakers. So just hit spacebar. Alright, and if you can hear your tracks clearly, that means you've successfully set up your I/O correctly. Like I said earlier, these 3 audio tracks are what we're going to be using in these series of tutorials, and we are going to be designing a background scene, the BGs or the ambience, for a scene that takes place in Central Park in New York City. So as you can probably see in the folder that you were provided, there should be a subfolder called Images and 2 photos from Central Park. The first photo should look like this. You should have a nice wide shot of Central Park, and the second photo you have is more of like an inside the park shot. So we're going to be designing a scene and a transition from the first photo to the second photo. So make sure you just keep those on hand. If you're using Pro Tools Intro, we will not be able to upload any videos or photos inside your session. So just make sure you have them on the side, maybe on your phone, an iPad, another monitor if you have, or just on the side of your screen here, just to take a look at as you're editing. All right. So that's everything for this first video. The next one, we're going to be going more into specific tools in Pro Tools and how to navigate around your session.